Many thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. A little bit about me. Everything I'm about to speak to you, I do in my spare time, and I'm sure many of you know that feeling. This story is about Hampden Bowling Club and the Hampden Collection, and my mission to ensure Hampden's phenomenal history is explained to the world. And what I'm about to tell you is summed up by one word: obsession. This is the story of the lost Hampden Park and why it is the world's most important football ground. So where is the real starting point of this story? I need to transport you back to Victorian Scotland, where a group of Highland men watched the locals play football at the Queen's Park Recreation Ground. Inspired by what they see, they meet at Dick's Bar, 3 Eglinton Terrace, to form a football club. The time chosen is 8:30 p.m. It is Tuesday, 9th of July, 1867, which I regard as the most important minute in football history. And today you can still visit this place, 153 years later, which is now known as Victoria Bar. They agree on naming themselves Queen's Park Football Club, and their mission is to provide recreation and amusement for all of their members. I do love this quote from Richard Robinson, which explains how vital Queen's Park are to Scottish football. However, I want to go one step further and replace the word Scottish with the word world in this statement above. Today, I will give you a snippet of Queen's Park Football Club's legacy, starting with their role as the master stadium builders. Queen's Park opened Hampden Park on the 25th of October 1873. Over the previous 12 months, they'd fielded the entire Scottish international team, led the creation of the Scottish Football Association and the creation of the Scottish Cup. The new facilities boasted offices, a grandstand, an iconic pavilion, baths, the world's first use of turnstiles, and created the members book, which you know today is a season ticket. Sound familiar? Yes, this is the template of every football stadium ever built. You may also be surprised to know that these are the only pictures of it. When Scotland called this home from 1878, Queen's Park went one step further, and by default, Hampden Park became the world's first purposefully built international football ground. Scotland would play here 6 times on this ground, winning 6 times, thrashing England 7-2, 5-4 and 5-1. And Wales were also sent on the home on the end of 9-0, 5-0 and 5-1 defeats. This is a whopping 36 goals for and only 8 against. I'm sure you'll agree that Hampden Park was Scotland's tartan fortress, which regularly witnessed crowds of 15,000 and beyond. So what else is important about the first Hampden? The key word in this article is private, which allowed them to excel at their footballing craft and athletic pursuits. During the 1873 to 1884 period, Queen's Park won the Scottish Cup on 6 occasions, as well as tearing apart the supposed English masters, Wanderers, in 1875, beating them 5-0 at Hampden Park. So why was Scotland so good? Well, they played the passing and running game, which had evolved over 500 years in Scottish communities, whereas England played a game more akin to rugby. The Scottish might have been smaller and lighter, but England's players thought it was cowardice to pass, and practice was considered cheating. In fact, their first formations were 1-1-8. Can you imagine? No wonder they got thrashed by the plucky Scots. These Scottish football players would go on to be nicknamed the Scotch professors, who would firstly go to England to teach them to play football as the first professionals. This was the only way England could catch up, and imported Scots by the dozen. You have to remember football was amateur at this time. The Scots went over to America, Canada, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, continental Europe, Russia, Australia and New Zealand as part of the British Empire, industrialising the world, and taught the locals a type of football they'd never seen before, a game for the people. If anyone ever comes and asks you where is the home of football, just reply, First Hampden Park, Glasgow, born 1873. And yes, we did teach Brazil, Argentina and the world how to play football, and that is not a story you will hear often. But let's go back to the first Hampden. This tartan fortress could not withstand the Victorian railway builders, who requisitioned this land to build the Cathcart District Railway in 1884. Queen's Park were moved 300 yards north, where they built the second Hampden at Cathkin Park. In 1903, they would move once more to the third and present Hampden Park, building the world's biggest football ground, the home of the Hampden Roar, which at its peak could hold an astonishing 187,500 people. At this juncture, I need to take you into a different sport, but literally less than 1 mile away from the first Hampden. The Victorian Glaswegian held many recreational sports, one of the biggest being lawn bowling, as you can see in the top right-hand corner. Palmadie Bowling Club established itself in 1877, becoming one of the Glasgow establishment, which boasted the most concentrated number of bowling greens in the world. Here is a map of the bowling green that only hint at the building structure. To Palmadie's credit, they won the Glasgow Club Championship twice and had Glasgow's first singles champion, Daniel Gibb. Now, not many people know that either. Another clue to the importance of this story is the Scots Gaelic for Palmadie is Burn of the Sons of God. An iconic phrase, as it would be Palmadie Bowling Club, which would ensure the first Hampden story flows into the 21st century and beyond. However, in 1904, they were told they had to leave their site as Glasgow City Council requisitioned their land for housing. Fortunately, there was a vacant site less than a mile away, which had been abandoned some 21 years earlier by Queen's Park Football Club. The parallels are uncanny. Palmadie moved into this abandoned site in 1905 and transported their turf to their new ground. Now, all they needed was a bowls house. How fortunate that 300 yards away, Queen's Park were on the move again and selling off second Hampden, which included a pavilion. This was the era of ultimate recycling. We know Palmadie brought their turf, we know they thanked the tiler and the plumber on opening day, and we know they built the most splendid bowls house at the cheapest cost. And of course, they renamed themselves Hampden Bowling Club and were founded at 8:30 p.m. Sound familiar? For the next 112 years, they would tell everyone they were on the first Hampden Park, including the Tartan Army, who regularly visited. They would explain to you that we're sitting in the original first Hampden Pavilion, next to the England changing room, which was the ladies' changing room today. The sorry truth was that no one believed them. And this is where we hit the fast forward button to 2011, when I moved into my new flat overlooking the beautiful Kingsley Rose Gardens and the Hampden Bowling Club. One day I received a letter explaining that the bowling club had dwindling numbers, nearly closed at the recent EGM, and were on the brink of shutting. The 5-word emblazoned across the page was very simple: use it or lose it. In that moment, I decided to go across and join as a social member. And one evening, whilst at the presentation dance, I was talked into becoming secretary. And as any good club committee knows, strike fast when the unknowing member is at their weakest after a few drinks. As you're a club, I'm sure you face all the same challenges. The world is so fast moving and there's so many places where people can utilise their precious time. The south side of Glasgow once had the most concentrated number of bowls greens in the world, and now they are closing and or being given up for development. In 2014, as Hampden Bowling Club secretary, I set about changing every inch of administration at the bowling club to create something innovative called an email address and create a newfangled toolset everyone was talking about: a web page, Facebook and Twitter account. I've now been treasurer, house convener and now bar convener in the last 6 years. And finally, in the last 2 weeks, we've applied for charitable status as a SKIO. Over this time, my renegade nature has caused conflict, but it was necessary to be in the position it is today, i.e. still open, and more important than anything else, a passionate and skilled committee who can deal effectively with things like a global pandemic and still complete all the club competitions safely, which we did this year. And most importantly, we've got a rise in membership and a future worth talking about. But apart from sorting out the club, there was one further parallel that was key to ensuring that our bowling club was seen above the noise and attract people into the club. If you thought the bowling club took a lot of spare time, what I'm about to tell you took up the rest. And this is where my personal interest exploded. On Boxing Day 2016, I sat at my in-laws. I flipped open my Mac and I went searching. No one believed the legend of Hampden Bowling Club, as there was no map. I knew the Cathcart District Railway had gone through the middle of the park. There must be records of the railway, surely. After some searching, I found the complete construction logs of the Cathcart District Railway in the National Records of Scotland and requested the section behind Hampden Bowling Club. After some months, I heard back and I'd been told that they'd sent 2 maps and this contained the answer. This was a true fake or fortune moment. Here is me on my right, opening the envelope on Saturday, 11th of March, 2017. That day I took my camera and recorded the first ever film of walking the 3 Hampdens. Please remember that date for later. And on that day, Hampden Bowling Club was proved right, and the map is the picture above. I'd proven once and for all the location of the first Hampden Park and located the world's first purposely built international football ground. Now, you would think there would be some fanfare. However, I was afforded 100 words in the Scotsman at page 16. Scottish football and media is more interested in today and tomorrow rather than the history of which the sport is founded upon. I recorded the film, I put it up on YouTube. I think it's been seen a couple of 100 times. Again, it shows how difficult it is to get your story out there. In that moment, I realised I would have to do something different to get the site recognised. Fast forward to Queen's Park versus Albion Rovers on 30th of December 2017. Jed O'Brien, historian and founder of the Scottish Football Museum, Thomas McNabb, director, he's a producer, and he's my old neighbour, and I head up to the third Hampden Park. That day we hatched the idea of the Hampden Collection, and within weeks a website, Facebook and Twitter pages were built and the challenge of building a team commenced. We now boast a team of exceptional talent, including poets, historians, an artist, a filmmaker, a graphic designer, a web designer, and all glued together by a gaffer, which is a title my good friend Jim McIntosh once called me. Jed O'Brien is now a great friend of mine, and he's campaigning to show how Scots founded world football, and I'm sure his upcoming book will break all the myths on the birth of football. Our accomplishments exemplify what can be done with people power and no money. The template is to make history exciting, and here are a couple of examples. We've partnered up with Tennent's Lager on our Restore First Hampden project. Tennent's, as you'll know, is part of the C&C Group, which is a multi-billion-pound company, and its prize lager was created in 1885 in this golden age of Scottish football. And here is me reciting poetry on Sky Sports on an East Beach at the Women's World Cup, which is Europe's largest sports broadcaster. Jim McIntosh, our poet-in-chief, wanted to ensure the women's national team had a poet in residence, to which I replied, why just have one? Let's have lots. And the world's first National Team Poetry Society was born, created by our own poet-in-chief, who recited his own poem on Scottish TV within the same week. As you can see, the Hampden Collection juggernaut is starting to crank through the gears. In the last couple of months, we've had 3,000 word articles in major Scottish newspapers, and the momentum is starting to gather. Maybe the Scottish media, football media, is starting to take notice of us. This flows nicely into the Scottish Professor Network, another one of my lateral ideas to build a global network of like-minded individuals who will help communicate this story to the world. We've now teamed up with football and history friends from both North America and South America, and with the 150th anniversary of the first Football International, which was held on St Andrew's Day, 1872, this network will be crucial in creating us a festival of football to mark this most important date. Furthermore, the 150th anniversary of the opening of the first Hampden Park is 25th of October 2023. These are the dates for your diaries, ladies and gentlemen. If we have our way, we will make sure the world knows that the birth of football took place in Glasgow, and when it is coming home to Scotland. They always say, leave the best till last. Here is our first Hampden mural, designed by our artist in residence, Ashley Rawson, my old neighbour, who I challenged to come up with a mural design fitting for the back wall of the Hampden Bowling Club Pavilion. There is over 200,000 railway passengers going past this every single week. And you can see above in the top part of the slide just what it looked like before. It was a proper eyesore and we'd received regular complaints. So we set about crowdfunding over £3,500, who was given with donations as far away as Australia, and we unveiled its completion in September 2019. That is the bottom of the bottom photo. Unfortunately, in February this year, our mural was needlessly vandalised. We knew the risks, but hoped it would be left alone. We launched the crowdfunding mission within days and raised another £3,000 to help with the restoration. We've now installed fencing, security cameras, lighting, anti-vandal climbing paint, and most importantly, Ashley is just finishing the final touches as we speak. We've had some brilliant companies sponsor the restoration, including Tenants, ES Group, and Image Systems and Technology. On the weekend, I sent a message to a friend. To do this once was Herculean. To do this twice is off the scale. If all else fails, we will need to turn to Tam Cowan's suggestion when we sent a note into Off the Ball about it. He said, maybe you'll need a pack of Rottweilers. We haven't resorted to that quite yet, but look out this weekend for a big unveiling. So what do I conclude in all of this? I do believe in Fae. The Scotch professors are smiling down at their creation and ensuring people once again learn about the legend of the first Hampden Park. Remember that date I told you to remember. Look a bit closer at the mural for the latest twist of fate in this story. That game, where Scotland beat England 5-1, was played on 11th of March 1882, and I discovered the only map in existence of the first Hampden Park on the 11th of March 2017. Fate? Yes. These two symbolic dates are exactly 135 years apart, and both were Saturdays. And finally, on the About Us from the Hampden Bowling Club Twitter account I created in 2016, and it read the following. Hampden Bowling Club is the best wee club in the south side of Glasgow. Our mission is to tell the world our story and have a lot of fun along the way. Some things never change, and I can honestly say this story's changed my life. I've met amazingly creative and passionate people and look forward to the future. My only ask is that you look up www.hampdencollection.com or www.hampdenbowlingclub.com and help spread the word. Or even better, pay us a visit and walk around footballing history. We're putting out interesting and exciting content all the time. When I started the Hampden Collection, I went on a mission to write about the legend of Hampden Park. Every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m, I put out a chapter, each one 220 words long, and it's now gone out for the last 138 weeks in a row. It tells this story firsthand from 1867 and is a map of football innovation in Scotland and entitled Football Queens and Kings. One day it will be published, if I ever get the time to speed up and write more than one chapter a week. And if it's not, I'll be finished in 2024. But I always told good things come to those that wait. So why 220 words? Well, one thing I've learned through all of this is that people don't have time. Each chapter takes 1 minute to read and contains a lot of things you might not have heard about. I hope you take a peek. All the chapters are on the Hampden Collection website, where we have 8 videos, 58 poems, and countless other information for you to discover about the 3 Hampdens in Scotland's football history. Thoroughly enjoyed explaining to you why the first Hampden Park is indeed the world's most important football ground, and I'd be delighted to answer any questions that you might have.
That was terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful, Graham. I'm sure there are lots of questions from the members.
What's the next?